Hello, welcome back to this channel. My name is Omolade Adeyemi. I still remain your fashion teacher. Today's training is going to be how to achieve this picture. How to achieve this. I try to sketch it out. This is the front and this is the back. The front and back is going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same thing. There is no difference. It's just going to be the same thing. But this side, the way I drew it is like this part is going to be should I call it flounce? So it looks like a flounce. So it's a pleated flounce. Flounce by the side. So it's going to, this part and the back part is going to be on the same side. So if you're putting it on the right, make sure the back is also at the right side. If you're making it be on the left side, make sure the back and the front meet together. Don't make one at the right and another at the left. It makes your designs not professional enough. So have you seen the picture? So let's put this aside. So the picture I showed you now is a spread in disguise. So we call it asymmetric skirt. So it's really a spread in disguise. It's not fully spread, because the way it's going to be is we are going to make it it's going to be a fitted skirt though, but it's going to have a flounce that nobody will even know if it's a fitted or not. So nobody will really know what the picture is except for those that come to you and start opening the fabric up and down. So it's called asymmetric skirt in disguise. So let's go to work. So now I've tried to join the front pattern together. So I think I still need to paper tape this down. So I need to cut a little part of my paper tape to hold this part down. Some can decide to use the normal sellotape. So but I decide to use this paper tape. So I've joined the two patterns together for the back, for the front. So let's do the same thing for the back. Really, I don't really want to gum the back together because I'll still have to open it at the end of the day, because when I want to start cutting, by the time I start cutting the back, I'll need to separate this part to this side because of the zip allowance. So maybe I should just hold it down a little with something, because I still need to open it back just to make sure our lines does not to hold it down is just to make our lines tallies. Whatsoever we are slashing out, whatsoever we are designs we are doing, is just to make it tally. So maybe I should just hold it down a little. I think it's okay. So I'll have to set the back aside and start with the front pattern first. So like I've shown, like you've seen the picture of the design we are going to do. So let's start with the designing. It's designing because you're a designer. So the first thing we are going to do is to decide which part the flounce, this beautiful design is going to fall. So yeah, so I'm going to decide where it's going to fall. This part is going to fall, but I want it to fall at my left side. I don't want it at the right side, so I want it to fall at the left side. So you can, if you can't imagine where the left side will be, you just stand and hold your pattern straight You can see this is where the left side is and this is the right side. So let's assume this is where the flounce is going to fall. So let's start our design. So for me not to forget, I'm going to mark this place so that we'll use that side. So the first thing we are going to do is to determine the length, the distance from this place to this place. You know, there is a cut here, there's a cut here, a cut here, and another here. So we have 1, 2, 3 cuts pieces before we get to the design itself. So let's determine the length between this and this. Let's see what we are going to use. So you can, this is the biggest, I think this is the biggest size of the design. So let's use the biggest size. I can decide to use I can decide to use 4 inches for that. So let me mark 4 inches. So, and the next one lesser, that one has to be lesser than the upper one. So let's say I use 2.5 inches for that, and I'm going to use 2 inches for the other one. Really, I don't want this part to come down more than this place, because I still have, because the beauty of this flounce is when you have it when it's a little bit high, not really to your hip points, so that people will see it, you'll be able to see the design very, it will really come out fine. So that's the beauty of the design. So what I want to do is I want to make the whole thing, because I don't want it to be higher than 6.5, 7. I don't want it to come down near the hip area at all. So let's say this is 6.5. Yeah, we are still right. 6.5. Then I want the upper one to be smaller. So I'm making that 2. I want the next one to be wider, a little wider. So I'm making that 3. Then the smallest one to be 1.5. So the whole thing makes 6.5. 6.5, so we don't mind this part. So if this is 2, and we have 3, and we have 1.5. So let's start our design. So the first, so I want to try and cancel the one that does not, so that you won't be confused about it. So this is not part of it. This is not part of it. This is not part of it. And this is not part of it. This is not part of it. This is not part of it. So it's 2, we have 2, we have 3, and we have 1.5. So those are the lines we have. 1, 2, 3. So the one you see that I try and make a star sign on it is not part of it. So let's start with the design. This design is going to come this way. This design is not really going to start from here. It's going to start from somewhere here and link to this place. So let's use this curvy ruler. Let's use our curvy ruler to achieve that. So for that, you're going to determine where it's going to start from on your own. So let's say I want it to start from 2.5.3. Let me use 3. So let it start from 3. The first one does not really start from the tip of your band. It does not really start from here. It starts far away from the band. So let me say I use 3. So I'm going to blend it to this point. So that's the first line. That's the first line. So the second line is going to be somewhere from here. I can decide to use 2.5 here. Let's say 2.5 this part. So I'm going to join it to this. We are coming here. We're coming to the 3 inches line here. So it's going to be like this. So that's the second line. The third line is the 1.5 part. So what I use is I measured 2.5 here. So on this, the third one is going to be wider at this part than this one. So let's make the third point 3 inches. So I'm going to connect it to this 1.5 here. So by that, I'm going to use this side. It's going to come this way. So that is the last shaping. So the next thing is to achieve this little curvy line. So the next thing is to achieve that. But by doing that, I'm going to measure here, from here to this point, from this point to this place. I'm going to use 5.5 inches. That's the distance I'm going to use, because it's not so, the curvy line does not really come in to the mid of your skirt. So I use 5.5 inches. Then at this point also, I think I still need to, I will need to come down here by 5 inches. I use 5.5 there. I don't want to use 5.5 here. I don't want it to come down that much. So I'm going to use, sorry, let me come down a little. I'm going to use 4.5 inches. It depends on is your design, so you can determine whatsoever you're going to want to use. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect this line to this line. If you notice, it's not really like that sharp curve, those things. So let's come this way. Let's make it like this. That's the end of the design. So the last thing we are going to do is to create the flounce by the side here. So I think we should do that now before we move to the back, or we should do this same design, repeat it at the back, then extend then we create our flounce. So which one do we do? Let me do the back. So this is the back. So you make sure whatsoever you've done to the front, you're also going to do it at the back too. So let's keep this aside now. We are going to follow this. So what we are going to do is to use this same calculation, this same measurement, we'll do it for the back. We'll do it like that, like that, like that. But the first thing I'm going to do is don't forget, we are going to chop off this dart. I'm going to take off my dart. So after the designs, I'm going to do that. I'm going to chop off this part. The dart is going to be removed and shaped this way. It's just to give the back fittings. It's just to give the back fittings. So we are going to chop it off and make it this way. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. But before we achieve that, so let's do the design. I'm going to remove that later at the end of the lesson. So let's take the measurements. So from here to this point, I did 2 inches from the tip of the skirt, which is the skirt band tip. I measured 2 inches, then I come down by 3 inches or so, then 1.5 inches. So let's do that here. So the first is 2 inches, the second is 3 inches, and the third is 1.5. Because each point has to tally, has to end up at the same point. So that's 6.5. So what I did at the front part is, before I started this shaping, I measured 3 inches off it. So I'm going to measure 3 inches off this part too. So thank God it does not even get to where the dart is. So 3 inches. Then I come here, I measured 2.5, 3 inches. So I'll come here, I'll measure 2.5. So let's start connecting. So this is what I did for the first part. So for the second line, I'll join this to connect this line to this line. So let me try and cancel this. That's why we always suggest we use pencil. The marker I'm using is not really the right thing, but I wanted to see clearly that was why I'm using it. So the last thing I'm going to do is to connect this 1.5 to this 3 inches point. So done this way. So that is it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to measure what I use here. The distance between this part from here to this place, I use 5.5. So I'm going to come here and measure 5.5. My 5.5 is going to fall at that line. So let's make it 5.5. Then I'll come here to the base of the skirt and measure what I use here. I use 4.5. Oh, this is going to be at this side. So what I did to this part is wrong. I should have placed the two patterns together to see where it's going to be at each point. So this part, the design I did here, should be here, and this one here, so that by the time I join my fabrics together, it's going to align at the same point. So what I did here is wrong. I'm going to transfer what I've done here back to this point. Pardon me for that. Pardon me for that. So sorry, like I said earlier, I made a mistake, so I'm trying to retrieve the mistake back to the normal thing I should have done. So like like I always tell my students, mistake are meant to happen. Mistake are bound to happen. So whenever you make mistake, you restart all over. So I don't know why I'm not restarting all over, but I need to show you this is the mistake I've cancelled out, and this is the new one. This is the new one. This is the new lines. Because like I said earlier, when you if I've left that mistake like that and I decide to let me just do it the normal way it should be, let me maintain the mistake, by the time I join this place together, the design here, the cutting here and the cutting here is not going to align. Let me show you. This is the initial, this is the first one I did, which is the mistake, and look at the way it should be. So you measure from, if you see from the picture from this edge to this point, you see it's not it at all. This one is longer than this, so it means this is the design here should be the one here. So now I've correct the mistake and I've make it equal. So by the time I join from here to this point, is same thing from here to this point. So I'm from here to this, the same thing from here to this. So from here to this, from here to this. So I've corrected my mistake. So let's continue. Like I said, this is the back piece. I'm still going to open this part out. But before I do that, let's continue with our designs. So I'll measure 5.5 here, which I've done already. So now I'll come here because the line is connecting from this point to this point. So I'll now come here and measure 4.5, so which I've done. So the next thing is to connect the lines. So I'm going to connect from here. So this is it. These mistakes are bound to happen. That was why I suggest we use you use pencil. So this is it. So I've done the back and the front. So the next thing we have to do now is to start with the other part of the design, which is the pleat that is going to be here, because it's going to be attached with our fabric, with our pattern. So it's not like we are going to cut a different piece and attach it to our skirt. No. So how to do that? We are going to start now. The first thing I'm going to do is to join another pattern to the front. I'm going to start with the front. I'll join another pattern with this, then continue. So let me set the back pattern aside. So I've joined I've joined another paper to the pattern. So, and I try to draw out the initial line on the paper because the paper tip has already covered my line, so I need to draw it out. I need to trace out the each side on the paper. So the next thing I'm going to do to achieve this is a pleated is really, the flounce is a curvy. You need to create a curvy flounce so that at the end of the day, while pleating it on this side of your fabric, so it will create a beautiful flounce. So the next thing I'm going to do, because it's going to be I'm going to chop off this part. I'm going to chop off this part, but I need to extend this line first. I will extend this line first. I will extend this out because it's a pleat. So you determine the pleat by this length. You determine the pleat by this length because it's going to come all the way. So that was why I'm extending the band line out. You first extend the band line out. Make sure your hand is straight. Extend this line out. Then I'll come down here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create a curvy line. But before I create any curvy line, I'm going to measure some inches, because at the end of the pleat, this part has to align with this, with the level of this with this our skirt, with the length of my skirt. So I'm going to measure something like 8 inches, 7 inches. Let me use 7 inches to measure 7 inches. Then I'll take this point out also. I'm going to draw this line out also, because it's going to end. Just draw it out a little. I'll draw it out a little. So I'm going to create something. I'm going to create like a circle. Sorry, I'm going to do it this way. So then this, so for this I'm going to measure what I'm going to use, what this wideness is going to be. Let's say I'm using 6 inches. It's going to come this way. It's going to come this way. It has to. This is how it's going to come. So it's going to meet that way. So this place from here to this point is where the pleat is going to, is what we are going to pleat at this point, this area. That's the pleat that is going to be here, from this point to this point. So from here to this place, it's going to be pleated along this space here. So you determine that. So let me join the lines together. So that's all for the front. That's all for the front. That's all for the front. So the next thing is to cut it out. So this is it. This is how it's going to be. So I'm still going to open up this. I'm still going to separate this from this and slash this pattern out, but I need to just show you that this is it. So the next thing is I've paper taped the back. I've paper taped the back to a new paper. So this is the back. This is the new paper. So the front and the back has to align. So what I'm going to do is either we'll measure the same way we did the front. We'll take the measurement all over, or you place the front. You just make sure the tip of the sides are equal, and the knee, the length of your skirt is equal to what you have here. So I think it's equal this way. So I can easily trace it out like this, or I take the measurements all over to achieve what I want. So either way. So I think to save the time, I need to trace it out. So the next thing is to cut. So this is it. This is the front and this is the back. This thing is going to consume a lot of fabric. So this is it.